Welcome to Self-Perfected.
How's this idea? And she's like,
That's a good one. She just says something really sarcastic.
Let's
Like,
do it.
oh, here we go.
do
We're
that.
in. We're live.
Hey, can you play the DMX song again? I'm just kidding. Then sometimes it will give the little like copyright notice, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, DMX is trying to get every dollar he can from.
I know.
We were playing Lose My Mind before the recording started.
Yeah,
Just to get, you know, real into the mood, into the attitude, the energy, you know. And like I was saying, he was the first person to predict the War for the Mind. When did that song come out? Lose My Mind. Let's see here. Oh, that's not it. I don't even know if that's the right name. That might even be the name of it. Yep. Oh, it's called Party Up in Here.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's stupid. When did it come out?
I'm gonna guess.
90? No.
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
say
say
late 90s.
94. That's my guess.
Late 90s.
My second guess is 97, so that way I can appear more.
99, I think.
You think?
It looks like it's 99. Hit the charts in 2000. So
Right. Were
Yeah,
you
that
listening
makes
to that back in
sense.
'99 before it was cool, Cam?
yeah. Hey, the video was shot in Galveston, Texas, where I spent part of my childhood being neglected. So speaking of neglect, Katie was telling me like right before I drove to the office, she said that do you guys know who Grimes is? The music
Yeah.
artist?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
I
that
know
your
about
girl?
this.
She's like,
No.
I know all
I
about
heard
this.
this story already.
What?
She's
Tell,
like,
I didn't hear the story.
Drake has a personal assistant, and whenever anything Grimes comes up in the news, they immediately text him. So he's
She's right there.
always
She's
current
right
time,
there.
up to date. Well, Chris Seagot also has an assistant. So, yeah. Yes.
Like a
Elon
hierarchy.
Musk's.
Christina.
I don't even think they were married. This is called the self-perfected gossip hour.
Mm.
No, but there is a reason. You know what the difference between gossip and not gossip is?
One, your mouth is open, and the other one, it's not.
One is it's based on opinion. The other is based on life.
Technically, it's just if I'm doing it, it's not gossip. That's how it works. No, it's like, can you turn it into a way that's supportive? Would you say it to the person if you were talking to them?
Well,
Some women are just
What
catty,
happened?
and they would say it to the person that they're talking to.
But in any case, it's public news, isn't it? So I don't even know if that's considered gossip. I have to go back to the technical definitions to see if I'm okay here. Okay, I'm all right. But apparently, you know the story. Go ahead, Drake. You tell the story for context. You don't fucking know the story. What are you like gathering? You're like, let's talk about Grimes. All right, we're good. Here we go.
So Grimes is some sort of singer woman. I don't know.
You sound like Kamala Harris explaining the Ukraine situation.
I can do
So
that.
like you've got this country, it's a small country, and it's like in this place called Europe, it's a small country, and Russia's a big country, and the big country invaded the small country, and that's like wrong. Okay. You know what I realized? Why she said it like that? Because everyone's like, oh my God, she's a retard. Do you know who she was talking to?
Biden.
She was on the Breakfast Club.
Uh,
I could be wrong about the exact podcast, but I think it was on the Breakfast Club. So she
Mm.
was dumbing it down. All right. Anyways, back to Grimes.
Drake, you don't have
This
to
is-
dumb this down for us because our audience is pretty smart.
okay.
Eh.
All right. So Grimes, basically, some singer. She married Elon, or did not marry Elon Musk. Got together with Elon Musk. They had a baby together.
They named
They
it
had a
after a supersonic jet.
They named it after some random ass letters that are not even in the English language, like ash.
Surrogate baby too.
And
Wait, was
they
the first one a
called-
surrogate?
Yes. Wait, was it Mitch?
I don't know. See God.
I don't think so.
No, I
She was
don't think
definitely
so.
pregnant
Telepathic.
the
I
first
think I
time.
think she had that baby.
Yeah.
I think the second one was pregnant. What were you gonna say?
Okay.
Did you know, Sigurd?
I know this one was a surrogate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
The
okay.
second one. But we haven't got to
Yeah.
that part in this time.
Okay. Because like I was gonna say, that's
We have to
pretty,
go
like,
through all of her singles and albums in between.
Gotcha.
So was
they
this
put out
before
some
or
music,
after she released?
right? And then,
oh.
Okay, so yeah, she put out some music videos. She's like some anime person. You know what it is? You know what it is? I think that's what the appeal is. People like Elon Musk because they think he's like Tony Stark, right? A lot of young guys like, I want to be like Elon Musk, real life Tony Stark. He's so cool. Like he can be this nerd and a billionaire and make all this, like, do all these cool things. And he gets the girl that's basically like an anime girl in real life. Like all the girls that you see in anime, that's her in real life. It's Grimes. Awesome, right?
Yeah, I was watching her latest, I think it's her latest music video just on the way up here. And it's called like Shinigami Eyes or something. It's totally like this anime like whole thing. I really think it's like what is popular in the kind of, I don't even know what you call it, sort of like nerd. It's not even nerd. It's just like like guys who play video games all day. I don't know, what do you call that?
Well, I will tell you about those guys in just a little
Losers?
bit, just a little bit. But
But it's like they want to do memes and they want to do anime. That's like the thing. So
And then
like
they wanna
somehow
do-
it's like Elon Musk and Grimes getting together. It's like it's like the King of England married the Queen of Spain. It's like bringing empires together. It's bringing the memes
Hey,
and
that's good.
space and NASA and colonization and climate change and crypto and anime all into one.
I'm with this. I'm with this. Anyway, they separated. They're not together anymore. Yeah. And
Oh, I
they've
was hoping
been
it would be
separated for a while.
Yeah.
And then they decided to have a surrogate baby even after they've separated, and they've named that baby Y. So they named the first baby Ash, but they like spell it X, or no, they spell it Ash, but they call him X. And then they named this baby some other random shit, but they call it Y, and it's a girl. So they have an X and a Y chromosome. Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Okay. So
That
I'm trying
child
to,
is not going to be supported effectively.
so they separated and then they decided to have a surrogate baby.
Yes.
So how is it that they're having the baby? Is it like both of their DNA?
Yes, that's what I understand it to be.
Okay. I was like, where does he come into the equation? Okay,
He
so
doesn't come.
what do they just like put a syringe in there and extract it? I don't
You
know
ever
how it
watched
works.
Austin Powers?
Yes,
You got my mojo.
that's right. Okay, so basically, Austin Powers went back in time, stole Elon Musk mojo, and had a surrogate baby with Grimes. Okay, so where is this all going? All right, so here's my point. Where in any of this is the consideration for like supporting these kids effectively? Because I'm seeing Grimes is doing this music video, and I'm like, how the fuck is she even with her kids? What were you gonna say, Siga?
Also, this is his 7th child. Did you guys know that? Like,
I knew he had a
already-
few before, yeah.
Yeah, I just looked up online. He's got 7 kids, and this is the second one with her specifically. These kids are
Okay.
so
They're
terrible.
fucked.
Just terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, they're fucked, right? So the whole point of giving all the context and bringing it up is just like everyone worships Elon Musk. Like, I guess apparently he's the richest man in the world. I don't know how they actually know that, but that's what they say, right? That's what he represents. And I guess she's her own thing in the system too. But it's like these are elite people. Yeah, I mean, let's see. I'm just gonna look up her latest video, Shinigami Eyes, just to see how many views it already has. It's already got 9.7 million views, and it came out a month ago. Right. So, I mean, and she gets consistently millions and millions of views on her videos and so forth, right? She's got a big following. So these are elite people, right? I mean, Elon Musk, obviously, that's no question. They don't have a fucking clue about how to support their kids. Because first of all, if they had a clue at all, they would be together. They would have got married. They would have said, there's no more searching. I'm going to support you, and we're going to make sure these kids are effective. And Elon Musk can make all the special schools he wants to make and do all that stuff. It's not going to support his kids. It's not, because they're not around their parents all the time. They're not getting one-on-one support from their parents, from their mother especially. And Avery was making this point about, do you remember this point he brought up the other day on the meeting? I think it was like a smaller meeting we had. And he was talking about unconditional love.
Yeah.
Right? And he was saying that, like, where is the place where children learn unconditional love? Right? And it is from the mother. And imagine the mom is like, I'm not even going to be there for you. I'm not going to be around. I'm not going to learn everything about you and support you. And it's like, that's the point of the mother, is to teach that point. And if the mother isn't expressing unconditional, I'm not just teaching it, but actually doing it for the child, because the father can't do it, because the father can't breastfeed, because the father can't, the male can't do what the female can do. He can't do that. Right. So what ends up happening is the child just learns survival. They just learn competition. They just learn, conditional love, if you want to call it that. And so then their starting point of their life is always seeking love from other people, like feelings, emotions, not giving that. It's like what you'll notice when you're around my children, for example, is that they're not, it's like they want to play, they want to create stuff, but they're not looking for some kind of emotional thing from the people around them, because they're constantly given that in abundance. And I don't just mean, and like, we're not going around saying, oh, I love you, I love you. We're not doing that stuff. It's just like, we're giving them what they need, whether that's attention, food, exercise, like whatever the particular points are, depending on the context, like they're getting what they need constantly all the time. So they're never coming from a starting point of lack. Right. And it's fascinating, because you can be the richest man in the world and still not have a clue about how to support your children. Right. So he's not even creating more Elon Musks with his children. He's just creating a bunch of kids who are probably just going to be rich kids. That's it.
He's creating a bunch of abuse. That's what he's creating.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Think of the example that he's setting. Right. It's like that's just acceptable to then have, ex-wife, because isn't this like his third ex-wife now?
Something like that. Well, that's the point, right? So it's normalizing. Well, it's not like it's not already normal, but it's like a public figure, a person who's very influential, and is not even considering what I do with my life influences other people.
Yeah.
How I live my life, not just how I act and say, because, like we've said, you can be flexible within your expression. Like, just because you want the world to be, peaceful, doesn't mean you have to always be calm and quiet. You could be aggressive, but that's different than living in a way where you're constantly creating aggression. You see what I mean? Like, where you're like abusing people and not supporting people with what they need. So there's a difference. And so when you're in that, really, it doesn't matter whether you're in that position or not, but especially in that position, you have to be aware that how I'm actually living is going to influence a lot of other people, and the system will use it to create more instability. So the more, and this is why, when you really look at it, why we're always talking about taking more responsibility in your life and in the system, because if you're doing it from a starting point of principle, what does that force you to do if you take more responsibility?
If you're doing it from principle, what does it force you to do if you're taking more responsibility?
Forces you to care. Forces you to care about the world.
No,
Forces
it
you-
doesn't force you to care.
Mm.
Like, you have to care to take the responsibility in the first place.
Okay. Well, it forces you to make changes in your environment.
Right. It forces you to change. I mean, it's not forcing you, but I'm saying, how do you stand in that position of higher responsibility within principle and not change yourself. And so people want to change, let's just say, I mean, people don't want to change, but they want the result of having changed, right? So let's just say from that perspective, they want to change, but they don't want to change. So how do you change yourself when you don't have anything to change within? It's like, okay, I'm just going to be a better person. What does that mean?
You know, it's
Like, if you want to be a better person,
interesting,
solve a problem that affects other people. There you go. And then what would you have to change to be able to solve that bigger problem? Right? What were you going to say, Drake?
I was gonna say, so we're over here at this networking event, and one of the speakers yesterday was talking about like how he knows all these wealthy people, and he's like, they all have the same problems you do. They all said the same thing that you're saying, that when I become a millionaire or whatever, when I have this, when I have this relationship, whatever, that then things are going to change. But they have all the same complaints that you do. They are the exact same as you. They don't change, right? He's like, why is that? Like, you think when you're wealthy, you're gonna go do this, do that, do this. There's so many things that you could be doing right now that you're not doing, which just shows you're not willing to do it. You're not willing to change. It's like, you know, I can't tell you how many people I would suggest, like, hey, go do this, and then they're not going to make the move. They're not going to change at all. And what he was saying is, it's because like the way that you think about life is actually a really great point. The way that you think about life is just from this ephemeral BS starting point. You're just living for this like fleeting moment, essentially, right? And so that's a problem, because that's not what life is. But it keeps you kind of circling within your own sphere of doing just stupid BS stuff, of like having this dream of like, oh, I'm going to get this watch, I'm going to get this car when I'm doing this, when I do that. But you're not actually considering, okay, what's the next step? Like, what could I be doing right now? What's practical and like making a real change in your life, that's based on something that's long-term, because you're basing everything on just some fleeting idea in your mind that's not even real.
And the idea wasn't even generated by you in the first place.
That's a
It's
huge
just-
point.
It's just a bunch of shit that was programmed into a person because they didn't have a parent directing everything. I was just thinking about, Max earlier. What was it? What was the point I was thinking about? It was something about, oh man, I'll bring it up if I can remember. It was something about what he was doing, like, as opposed to like what other kids would be doing or something like that. Man, I wish I could remember what it was. But it's like, if you look at, for example, him, and you look at his progress, you know, he's like, after dinner the other night, generally speaking, they're not just sitting around watching videos all the time. Okay, so it'll be like in specific contexts, right? Okay, well, now we've done our techno tutor. Do you guys want to play a little video game? We have like specific video games that they can play, and that we've looked at, and they're reasonable. Or do you want to watch some videos? And like, so throughout the day, they might be watching a video here and there, but then mostly they're like playing or doing something, or like maybe they're cooking with Katie, or they're playing outside, or writing their ATVs or whatever. But there's times when they can watch videos and so forth, right? And every once in a while, like maybe after dinner, Max will want to watch a video, and I'll be like, okay, well, yeah, let's do that. What video do you want to watch, right? So it's like kind of a case by case thing. It's not a every night we watch TV or something. Like, we don't have a TV, but you know what I mean? Like, we're not like every night. It's a pattern. But it was interesting because it was like we had dinner the other night, and then afterwards, Max wanted to watch a video, and so I put it on, and then Seneca was playing, and then she came and started watching, and for like 30 minutes they're watching a video on, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something about like how transistors work or something like that, you know, like the actual mechanics of what a transistor is and how it functions, and like the history of it and everything. And they're just both sitting there like just watching it. And then or no, maybe it was the one on logic gates. I forget what it specifically was, but like Seneca, she looked at me and she goes, Cameron, she goes, when you put the inputs in this one and you put two of the inputs, then the output it goes like this. And she was like describing to me, like in her, vocabulary level, like what she was seeing there, right? And it's like, we're being very specific about what it is they're exposed to, what they're doing, what they're playing, how they, like everything, all the inputs. And so you would think like, oh, they're not going to have any fun. They're just watching videos about electronics and stuff like that. But it's like children are naturally going to want to play. That's just natural. So whether you're giving them videos about things that are real and that matter, or whether you're giving them things about fantasy or whatever, they're still going to play with it regardless. And so why, as a parent, would you expose your children to media that is not designed from a supportive starting point? It's not designed to make your child smart. It's not designed to make your child effective. It's not designed to make your child emotionally stable. We went out. Oh, we picked up dinner last night at the little, you remember that place you guys, I think most of you guys went there, 1852. It's like a little steakhouse place right here. So we picked up dinner from there last night and I took it home. And I brought Seneca with me because she wanted to spend time with me yesterday. So I took her to Lowe's earlier in the day to get like wood, and we went to get the groceries. And then later I took her to the place to get the dinner. And when we were in there, the waitress, she recognized us. And she was like, "Hey, did y'all have the baby yet?" We were like, "Yeah, we had the baby." She was like, "Oh, I was wondering." She's like, "I heard your wife on the phone. I thought I recognized her. I thought I heard a baby in the background." And then she looked at Seneca and she was like, "How is she with the baby? Is she like really jealous?" And I was like, "No." And then I looked at Seneca. I said, "Seneca, what do you think about Caius?" And she goes, "Good." Right. And the woman goes, "Oh, that's really cool." I was like, "Yeah, she likes to kiss him and play with him." She goes, "Oh, that's so good. She's not jealous." She goes, "Well, yet." Right. And I'm like, and I said to Seneca, I said, jealousy is not acceptable, right? She was like, "Yeah, I know." And it's like, you see, like, oh, just take it for granted. You're going to be jealous. You should be jealous. It's fine. It's normal. And you can't direct that. You see all these things we take for granted?
Wow.
Like, you're supposed to be jealous of your brother or your sister. And it's like, why? Why should the 3-year-old be jealous of the baby? Well, she's getting all of mom's attention now. Why is the mom not also giving attention to the 3-year-old? And why does the 3-year-old need the same attention as a baby? Like, if you've directed the point effectively from the beginning, the child is now becoming independent. Yeah. So now you can say, "Hey, right now I need to take care of the baby." It's like, that'd be like saying she gets jealous of the dishwasher. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you have to spend time loading the dishes, is the child going to get jealous of that? Is the child going to get jealous of your toothbrush? Is the child going to get jealous of your car because you're driving and holding the wheel and not paying attention to them? Why are we taking for granted that they have to get jealous? It's like we assume automatically they never got unconditional love. So they're always needing more and more and more and more. And they're never stable within themselves. And then we're just going to accept that. But that's a total lack of education on the parent's part. Right?
Wow. That's really fascinating. Because I'm looking at this now. So we announced officially yesterday that we're having a baby. And
Hey, congrats.
yeah, so that's great, right? Now I'm
Baby
really
boy.
was it?
I said baby boy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So now I'm noticing all this stuff because, like, over the past 2 years, I mean, actually, ever since I met, you, Cameron, and Drake, and Asif and Kian at that Denver gin event. I remember we went out to dinner right away. It was like right after
Was that the taco place?
Yeah, the taco place. Yeah, that was fun, right? Because I didn't really properly see Max and Seneca. I mean, Seneca was like so tiny, like I don't even know how old she was, but
It was like a group setting where it was more about us talking and stuff.
Yeah, and it was so cool because I remember because they told me a little bit about you, but I didn't really get a chance to chat with you yet. And then you're like telling me this analogy of how like the programming is behind the computer and the image, and you're comparing it to the mind and stuff. I was like, holy shit, this is like really cool. And then you had asked me, or I'd asked you, it somehow came up. I was like, yeah, I want to have kids one day. And like, I want them to be smart like Max is. Like, I can already tell this kid is different than anything I've ever seen. And then you said something along the lines of, oh, so you want kids? Like, okay, like that starts now. Like that doesn't start later on. Like that level of responsibility, like right here, right now. And that really stuck with me because it got through to me of realizing, wow, I am doing so much dumb shit all the time. Like little points that I'm not directing in my life, whether it be like smoking weed or just allowing myself to just snooze in the morning mindlessly, or not, having parts of the day where I'm focused and other parts where I'm like, I can just fuck around, that kind of mindset. And so that was really a shift for me to start to become aware of everywhere where I'm not being effective. And obviously that would influence the kid. And so this is really cool to hear in this conversation, and especially for people listening, is like, I know so many of these young guys, especially, and men and women that are joining Self Perfected, haven't fully grasped this, of like the magnitude of one, of just being a human that can reproduce, and then two, realizing, oh, one day I am going to reproduce and have kids, or maybe you already have kids, and then to really take on that responsibility. And I got to say, like, listen to what Cameron's saying. I mean, just even the way of interacting there, like hearing the waitress say, oh, are you going to be jealous? And then you asking Seneca on the spot about that, of like, is jealousy acceptable? Like, that's so profound. Like, I don't know if people acknowledge how profound that is, because those little moments, if it's not caught, then, who knows what's going to happen, right? Maybe Seneca downloads that from that lady. Maybe Seneca has a point of confusion about that, but to be able to be there, and also to have a business, so you have the money, so you can go do things like that and not have to, you can actually be there with Seneca and give her that experience. That's so amazing, because look at this. Like, now we got Elon Musk's baby number 7 on the way. And these kids, they're going to be in the public spotlight, like Kanye West kids and all this shit, right? And Jay-Z's kids and all that. They're going to be in the public spotlight. They're going to be in the tabloids and the magazines and all that. And yeah, the child is going to probably be raised, by nannies or something? Like, I bet Grimes ain't going to sit down all day with
Well,
the kids.
I was watching that video and I'm like, man, this took a lot of effort for her to film that video. I mean,
Mhm.
you can imagine like the schedule of like when you're filming a music video, and they're like on, it's like you have a team and it's production. It's not just like you're on your fucking YouTube camera.
Yeah, and like, production quality is different than our Self-Perfected podcast, for example. But the value, right? It's like, where's the real value?
Yeah, it's
And
just
then
entertainment only.
Yeah. And then think about these kids, X and Y, or whatever the fuck you call them, right? It's like, those are innocent life forms coming on into the earth, right? And they're now here. And it's like, we got to ensure that they have dignified life. And ultimately, though, it's like the parent is going to be the one that can actually do that. And so think about that. Like, what are those kids going to develop into? And like, get rid of the shiny object. Oh, it's Elon Musk's kid, they're going to be amazing. It's like, no, like, actually look at what the fuck is going to happen to that kid, as opposed to like how now Cameron's kids are developing. Like Drake and Christina, I know you'll have kids soon. Like me and Jessica, all these kids that we have in the Self-Perfected network, think of how much further advanced our kids are going to be, even by the time they're 5, and then what's going to happen then 10, 20 years down the road. Like, we're going to be able to influence those kids, because they're going to have to walk their process too. And they're going to have to realize, like, fuck, all this resentment I have towards my dad and mom for being dumbasses. Like, they're going to still have to walk their process. And so it's really cool when you can see that bigger picture and then tie it into here and now, of like, what am I accepting and allowing in myself today that is going to influence my children, and how can I direct that to ensure that the best outcome comes about?
So, question. You guys, you just said that you and Jess are having a baby boy.
Mhm.
That was just like a random accidental thing that happened, right?
No,
You were totally surprised, right?
exactly. It was intentional, really, from day one. From that time we were at taco dinner, I was like, okay, I'll make sure my kids are like Max. Like, this is cool. And then I had to direct myself. Till then, over time, that allowed me to be in the position to then get clear on my relationship. Then I proposed the idea to Jessica to be in a relationship together. And then from day one, again, we're like, hey, part of our agreement is we're going to raise our kids in the principle of self-perfection, of like, we are going to do our best to be the living example and to be that for our children and to support them to develop into the best version of themselves. So everything was intentional to the best of our ability.
How do you handle the point within yourself of like, well, but you know, this world, it sounds kind of silly asking you this, but for those listening, like this world is so fucked up and having kids in it is like, you know, they're going to have to deal with all this shit and like it's going to screw them up. And like also it's going to be more financial pressure and like I have to take care of another person. And like, how do you deal with that stuff within you?
Yeah, well, I for sure had those thoughts in the past. Like, yeah, the world's not in a good state. How could I bring a child into this place? But it's like, am I here to just fucking complain and waste my life and let Earth go to shit? Or am I here to actually sort this out? And so part of me sorting it out is having kids, because I know that those kids, if they're effectively supported, can also help us sort the world out. And it's gonna push me to take even more responsibility. So at the end of the day, you can always ask yourself, like, am I taking more or less responsibility? And having kids is taking more. And within that, then it's like push me to just realize my next level of growth, which is, okay, go to the next level of my business, go to the next level of supporting people, bring self-perfected to the next level. Like everything just goes to the next level. And now I just know, like when the kids get here, it's going to be great. And yeah, there's going to be times where we go out into the world and someone's going to say some stupid shit to them. Or maybe they, you know, see, I don't know, hear some current events or something. And then they're like, wow, wait, why is there like, what is World War III? And you have to explain shit like that. But so like, then you just do it. Because what's the alternative? Fucking sit in the corner and cry? Like, you have one life, you have the most amazing opportunity right in front of you to take this world and make it best for everyone so we can actually have heaven on earth. But if you're going to just sit there and complain and then not want to do anything about it, like, that's pathetic, because you have all the tools. Like, if you didn't have the tools and you're actually destined for failure, yeah, I'd say, okay, then just go do that. But like, we have the tools.
Don't have kids. Don't do anything.
Yeah, don't fucking have kids. There's some people who should not have kids yet. They should,
like Elon Musk.
Like Elon Musk, exactly.
Like, you've had enough, just stop.
Then they should join our group, and then we can actually like have a real discussion and help them understand the principles, so that us collectively, like, we can really build this community to the next level.
You know, someone might say, well, why don't you just go sell TechnoTutor to Elon Musk? It's like, well, yeah, obviously. But you know what would really help with that? Having more kids that are like Max and Seneca,
Exactly.
so that people can see that, and then it's undeniable. Right?
Exactly.
Just like who listened to Elon Musk back when he was before Tesla? No one.
Right.
I mean, a few people that were in his circle, his peers, but no one else knew the fuck he was. But now, because Teslas are everywhere, everyone listens to him.
Exactly.
Right. So the more children we have that have this kind of support and are parented by these principles, people like that will listen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what TechnoTutor will be. Like, it will be, as just like you're seeing Tesla everywhere and it's growing and growing. It's like, that's what TechnoTutor will be. It just takes fucking time. And we're so damn brainwashed from day one of our lives to think of instant gratification. It's like, we're just so focused on, how can I just quickly make this happen and get the feeling that I want and all this shit. And it's, in reality, we underestimate how slow physical reality moves. I was listening to an Equoff interview in the Soul of Money series, and it was talking about, there's a one called Moving Your Staff and Business Forward. I've listened to it a few times, but I just re-listened to it this past week. And it was really awesome to be reminded of it, of like every week, right? Doing clubhouses, doing the self-perfected call, all of the stuff. It's like, it just takes so much time, but you can apply yourself. And then in certain moments, you'll have rapid growth. And it's like, whoa, like you upgrade big time. And then everyone around you is like, wow, how'd you grow so fast? It's like, well, you didn't see all the other times where I did a clubhouse and not many people showed up, or I did a live stream and not many people watched, or whatever. I presented TechnoTutor to someone and they didn't understand it and they didn't get it. It's like, but it just becomes who you are. You just do the thing over and over. Who cares how you feel about it? But you just do it and you do your best every time. And then over time that accumulates. And then it's like, I always love the analogy of looking at like skyscrapers because like think of the mindset you have to build a skyscraper. It's like you realize it's going to take years, but once the thing is built, it's there. Try and remove a skyscraper. And so it's like that's the level of thinking that we all need to have towards our first ourselves and our life and our process. It's going to take fucking time. But then also looking at ourselves, partners, family, and then the influence we have in the world, this community and its growth. It's like it just takes fucking time, be patient.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the same thing as raising kids effectively too. You see the same points where it's like a lot of effort that, it's not about like you're doubting anything. It's just you don't see the result of it right away. And then eventually at a certain point, it's like, bam. Like, for example, Seneca. She's like, people say children are different. And yes, children are different from the perspective of like personality, preferences, things like that. I mean, that's undeniable, just like we're all four different, right? But that doesn't imply children learn differently. The problem is the reason why you think children learn differently is because you don't direct those first 7 years effectively. And then it seems like they learn differently. So I'm just giving that caveat because, Seneca she expresses herself differently than Max does, right? Which is fine. There's differences in like style and expression and so forth. And she's more like, well, it's kind of like the difference between Katie and I in some ways. Like if you had to pick one of us, Katie or me, okay, and I'll give a description and you tell me if that's me or that's Katie. Likes to perform for other people.
Katie.
You think that's Katie?
I would say Cameron, 100%.
I don't know. I don't think you like to perform.
Well, I do it all the time. I do. All right. But my point is, like, can you guys see the point where it's like, okay, I'm more like putting myself out there, performative, so forth. And Katie's like, she's not reserved, she's not shy, but she's just like, she's more doing something in the background and just making something happen. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
She's very good at performing. So it's not about like I'm better at performing. It's just in terms of our personalities, I'm more of a like, when you get Katie one-on-one, it's not that different than me. You see what I mean? But there's differences in style and so forth, right? So it's like that. We both have the same principles. We're both very effective, but we have differences in terms of how we express ourselves and so forth. And so it's like that with Max and Seneca. It's a very similar point. It's almost like a male-female kind of thing. And my point about giving all that context is in the beginning, like for, okay, you brought up Denver, right, Mitch?
Mhm.
When we were in Denver, Max was, let's see, that was like what, August or so of 2018 or no, 2019?
2019 of August.
2019. It was like August, right? So he was not quite 3. He was like, so his birthday's end of October. So he was like 3 months away from being 3 years old. And at that point, you remember this, Drake? We had brought these little cardboard cards that I had made with words printed on them. And I did that so I could make different sentences and other people could move the words around and you can make sentences and like swap a word out. So it's like you could have Max read something without any context and you could change it and you could see he can actually read without just giving him a book. Because if you give him a book, you might think, well, someone already read it to him. There's a picture, whatever, right? And they were words that we knew he had learned in Technitude because he couldn't read any word. We weren't claiming he could read every single word at that stage. I mean, of course not. You have to program it in. So at that age, he was like willing to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like he liked to show off that he could do it. Not show off, but he liked to just engage in that way. But Seneca isn't like that. Like, even though I know she can read, like when she was a little bit younger, if you were like, what does that say? She'd be like, I don't know. And I'm like, is it that you don't know? Or is it that you want me to do it? She's like, I want you to do it. I'm like, okay, well, you could tell me, I know what it is, but I want you to do it. So she would rather me read it to her. You see what I mean? She would rather me read to her than she read to me. At the same age Max was at, even though she could recognize the words like he could, she wouldn't have the same, like, it's kind of like why are you telling me to do it? Like, you're reading to me right now. You know what I mean? It's like if you went to the theater and the actors were like, okay, come up on stage and you're gonna do the lines. You'd be like, no, dude, I paid for you to do it. Like, I want you to do it. What are you talking about? You're way better than I am at it. Why would I do it right now? It's like that. I can see that within her, right? So my point is, it's not to say she's not performative, because she likes to dance. She likes to do different things, but it's not this kind of like, I'm doing it to show you something. Does that make sense? In the same way Max does. There's similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. And so my point is, it wouldn't have been as obvious at the same age Max was with her, if someone were just to go quickly and like not really have all the context or be around her a lot, they wouldn't know, oh, she can read at that same level. Does that make sense? Because she wouldn't have that same level of, or that same style of like performing like Max. It's very easy to tell Max like, okay, hey, we're going to make a video of you reading, Max. Can you read this book out loud? And then we're just going to do a quick video. It'll only take a few minutes. And he'll be like, okay. But if it was Seneca, she'd be like, no, you read it. Do you see what I mean? So it was more difficult to capture those things. There was moments where it was easier. And so we got a lot of that. But you can see she's along the same track. And so I'm just giving context because just recently that has totally shifted. The performance part hasn't shifted, but she just reads all the time now. Like, I'll randomly go into a room and she's in there with like one of her books and she's reading it. You know, like books that, you know, we didn't read to her necessarily a whole bunch, like just like a random book, and it has words that she can read. And she'll just be sitting in there reading it out loud to herself, like pointing at the words. Right. And so Max didn't really do that at a younger age than her. It's just he was more willing to perform, and so it was more obvious. Does that make sense? Right. And so my point is, with her, it took longer for it to become very obvious, like, oh, she can fucking read like really well, because she just wasn't as interested in showing it, if that makes sense. Even though we're doing our technotutor, we can see she recognizes words. Like, there's no question. You could show her words later that we had done a long time ago in technotutor with no context. She'd recognize the word, no problem, right? But now she's at the point, and I think probably also having Caius supported that, because it's kind of like, okay, look, practically speaking, we're not going to, Katie and I, be there all the time now to just read to you. So this is the point where now, this is why we were telling you at a certain point, it's good to use your technotutor, because then you'll be able to read on your own. But because we supported her with that, she can sit, she can read a book for 30 minutes or an hour and just sit there and read a bunch of different books and play. So there's no reason for her to get jealous, because at 3 years old, she can read. She, you know, and then she can go watch a video that's not super over the top stimulating. That's about something relatively educational. Maybe it's a video about dance. Like, I got her some videos about from different ballet instructors, like, that are designed like they're talking to children, but they're explaining like how to do actual, you know, ballet and so forth, right? And so she watches those. Like, they're watching videos about solving Rubik's cubes, electronics, like all that stuff. But the point is, she doesn't need to become jealous, because she has that independence to be able to support herself, to read, to entertain herself, and so forth. And then Max and her can play together. Like, oftentimes it's interesting, because Max or Seneca might come up to me, and if I'm taking a break, and she's like, you know, can you come play with us? And I'm saying, oh, I'm not going to play right now, because at this moment I'm going to do this particular thing. I could definitely play with you later, but right now I'm not going to. And it'll be like, okay. And then 5 minutes later, I'll see her out there on the trampoline with Max, and they're playing. And it's like, if I had just been like, okay, I'll play with you, then that wouldn't even have happened. So it's like, a lot of times they'll figure out, okay, this is not an option right now, so what can I do instead? But if they didn't have the vocabulary to do certain things, or if they had sibling rivalry, there wouldn't be a possibility. You see what I mean? Because we've supported them very carefully throughout their development. There's a lot more possible for them at a younger age. So the stuff where you would think they still need a lot of attention from us, they actually don't. That doesn't mean we don't give them a lot of attention. It's just they're not as dependent upon it as most children would be at that age, right? So they can be home all day, a 3 and a 5-year-old all day, and Katie's taking care of the baby, and I'm, you know, mostly here or doing stuff in the barn or doing whatever I'm doing. I'm not like babysitting them, you know, not doing childcare, and they're fine. Like, so the idea that you need to put the kids in preschool or daycare or school or whatever because you need to give him something to do all day is not true. It's not true at all. Right. In fact, I'll show you guys something I'm working on. Katie, so Max is really getting into electronics, as you guys know. And it's like, for a while, it's like he was not really doing it. And I think it's because everything was like in a box, like in the closet. And then finally he got them out, not too long ago. They started playing with them again. Then we started watching videos on logic gates and all this stuff. So he's like creating more circuits himself, not just his little snap circuit toys that he had before. He's like using real stuff. So I've been getting him things to be able to do that and working with him. And so Katie was saying, it'd be really cool if he had his own little table dedicated to that. So I was at Lowe's yesterday getting some supplies and I saw this. They have these things all over the place in Lowe's. They're like little benches. They're like work benches and they'll be colored. Like that's like near the Craftsman stuff. If it's a cobalt display, they'll have a blue one. So they just have a bunch. And I never noticed them before, but it's like, I think they're displaying like that drill. Right. So they have it there on the table. And I was looking at the toolbox or like the toolbox workbench tables. And I was like, I don't want to get him one of these things, but I don't really know how to build one. And you can't just look up child's electronics workbench table. Like that's not a fucking thing maybe it is, but I was like, yeah, I'm not going to find that. So I was like, I'm not really sure what I want to get him. And then I turned the corner and I saw this thing, right? And I was looking at it and I'm like, okay, it's a bunch of 4x4s, 2x4s, some plywood, some pegboard. I'm like, I could make that. That's not that hard. I could do that. So then I just looked at it and I took some pictures and I started writing down like, measuring stuff with my measuring tape, like right there in the store. And then I went and got all the supplies for it. And then I came home that day and I worked for a few hours and I'll show you. And I made one.
Wow.
Right. And you can see Seneca, I changed the dimensions of it and it doesn't have that middle shelf because it's like shorter, right? So you can see Seneca. So I was asking her, hey, can you sit there so I can see, is it a good height? Because I already figured it would, but I just wanted to kind of, it's like I just made it. So, and I'm probably going to put a little back shelf on the back. And then let me see if I took a picture. Here we go. So when I was at the store getting all the stuff, I texted Katie and I said, hey, can you ask Max if he could choose two colors? Or no, if he could choose a color, what color for a workbench for his electronics, what color would it be? And I'm thinking like blue, red, something like that, and I had my own ideas. And she said, silver and gold. I was like, okay. So I go to the thing and I asked the guy, I'm like, do you have silver and gold paint? And he's like, well, we have these ones. And I'm like, no, I want it to look like the actual. So he showed me these spray paints. And he said it's supposed to look like that shiny metal on the can, right? So then I showed Max the pictures of the workbench and he told me like what parts he wants gold, what parts he wants silver and everything. So now he's going to have a dedicated space for the electronics because right now he just does it on the kitchen table. And it's like, if he's working on something, you got to put it away. It's time to eat lunch. It's time to eat dinner or whatever, right? So he's going to have his own space. And I put that pegboard so we can like hang tools and stuff on it and everything, right? And then I got him a few more things that are more technical, but it's like now you'll see the whole thing will go to another level because he'll have his own space where he can do all that stuff. And he's 5 years old. I could create a workbench for him and give him all the electronics and he can just go do that and play with that. And he'll probably be there for hours doing that. Right. And it's because he has the vocabulary. That's it. He has the vocabulary and he doesn't have a bunch of, it's like, if I could think of the two most important things, it'd be the vocabulary and not having been impulsed with a bunch of shit that was just designed to get him to focus on other things.
Can I speak on
Yeah.
that real quick?
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking, like I would see a bunch of kids at the daycare and they could play house for a while. They could be like on their own with like a little kitchen set, whatever, for a while. But what they would be playing out would be like an argument that their parents had.
Yeah, I remember doing that when I was in kindergarten.
And it would just be like for seemingly, an hour or whatever, they would just be like, no, you can't do this because you're the baby and babies are not allowed. Like, that's how they would talk. And that would be for like, that was all the context that they had, and all the play that they could do was just, I can play in this environment. And even when they would play with other things, like with blocks or whatever, it would be like smashing blocks together because this block it eats your block, it kills your block or whatever, like, because you can tell it's something that they got from like television or something weird like that, or something that their parents were doing in the house, some argument that they were having, like they were just replaying that in their mind. That's all the vocabulary that they have, you know, that's all the understanding that they have, and that's how they play.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I don't know if it's yet obvious to people, but because I see it clearly, I'm sure, I know we all do. Are y'all starting to see that based on how we're raising this next generation of kids and ourselves, we're putting in the clubhouses, we have the influence in the media, as well as just in general, what we're building. We, over the next 5, 10, 20 years, are going to be able to then help all those kids that got fucked. The kids that are playing house and fighting with each other, or the Elon Musk type kids, or all that. It's like, that's the bigger picture here, is we're not here to play small. We're here to build the system that can then systematically support those people that have had the shitty upbringing, that got impulsed with all the BS, so then they can also now start to have a decent life. Yeah, I think it's worthy of
That's really important point, because people are, it's not that they don't need that now, but more and more they're going to need it. And you know what's fascinating? We talked about this before, but now people are like, oh, people are waking up. You know, like they're starting to wake up to the corruption and the conspiracies and all this stuff, and they're waking up to the elite and all this stuff. But just because you wake up, and I know we've talked about this before, but there's a specific point I want to make. Just because you wake up doesn't mean you know what to do, right? And what I see is the people who, even within our group, you know, because not everyone who comes into the group, self-perfected, techno-tutor, destiny, etc., not everyone who goes into it actually applies themselves all the way. Some people, they just come in. The initial part when you join something, it's like, hey, I'm here and I'm talking about, like, I'm using the vocabulary and I'm kind of like sharing stuff and I'm talking about it, but it's like you're not yet at that point where you had to face like, oh, now I got to fucking change something. And this is the make or break point where I'm either going to do that and continue, or I'm going to be like, no, I'm just going to stay the way I am, but I'm just going to pretend that I'm doing it. And I've seen people do that. I mean, that's going to happen. They're just, unfortunately for them, they're one of the people where it's like they need to experience more pain first. And I don't want that for them, but that's just the reality of this. That's the point that they're deciding within themselves, is that they need to suffer more before they see, I have to change. And it creates consequences for everybody, you know, because really, if everybody had stood up a long time ago when Bernard was talking about this, then we wouldn't even be, wouldn't have been coronavirus or any of this other crap. You know, maybe there still would have been, but the response to it would have been different, right?
You know,
what were you gonna say, Drake?
You know what I'm realizing is, like, there's a lot of, like, especially at this networking event that we're at, there's a lot of grown men who realize, like, I did not have the childhood that I wanted, you know, and they're facing that consequence right now, right? But also at the same time, what's really interesting is we're talking about these kids who are growing up, like, with their parents arguing and all that stuff, and that's all they learn. They're going to grow up and they're going to see Max and Seneca and Mitch's kids and Asif's kids and our kids, and they're going to see, like, oh, how come my parents didn't get me that? How come my parents couldn't do that for me? Like, that was possible when I was born. What the fuck, you know? And you're talking about, like, oh, people are just going to wake up and all this stuff, right? But people have so much hope in things just working out for them, but it doesn't work out for you if you don't take the responsibility. You just end up becoming your environment, and your environment is shit right now. You should know that. You should know, like, if you don't understand this right now, today, it's 2022, March, early March, your environment is shit, especially if you're not doing what we're suggesting, which is just basically elevate your kids, like grow your kids in a way that actually makes sense, not based on all the bullshit that you're seeing on television, in the media, whatever, what you were raised with, it's bullshit. But actually raising your kids with principles of doing what's best and giving them the ability to do that by giving them the proper tools so they can do that. Because if you just say do what's best, but you don't give them the tools to do that, it doesn't mean shit. You're just putting a judgment on them and they're not going to be able to figure it out.
Yeah, and the point I was making about people waking up or not when they realize, like you're saying, okay, I didn't have the childhood I wanted and so forth. The problem is they look around at the world, they see how fucked everything is. You know what they do?
Don't have kids.
Well, true. No, but
We
what I'm
hope.
seeing is people go right back into religion. And that's going to create a problem because, you know, that word hope, it's just creating hope. And it's going to create more religious fanaticism. And at the end of the day, if you think about it, the logical conclusion of religion is that God talks to you.
Hang on. The logical conclusion that I see of hope is just giving up. That's it.
Well, hope is giving up.
It is.
That's it's an act of giving up. That's
Yeah.
what hope is.
Yeah. And so that's what religion is too. It's like, it's the progression of really ultimately giving up and just like,
But think about back in the day, people believed, oh, with religion, God talked to the priests or to whatever, and then we just listen to that, right? But we're at a day and age now where every individual is already aware of that game. So when they go back to religion, what they're going to do is they're going to go back into this point of God's talking to me. And they're going to turn their inner voice into God. And then it'll become a point where they feel justified in whatever they do because God is telling them to do, even if it makes no rational sense whatsoever.
it's that point of psychosis or psychotic break. That's
Right.
literally what it is. Where
Right.
where it's like because like what a psychotic break is oh, all these things are not working. You have no way to explain it, and then you just reorganize everything in your mind to now make it make sense. So you create this God character that takes care of everything, and now it all makes sense. Okay, fine, we're fine, we're good.
Right. But meanwhile, things are not okay. You're experiencing the consequence. You get conflict according to that. You'll become more and more extreme within what you believe and do and think and so forth. And so I'm just bringing it up because the idea that we can sit back. Did y'all? I don't think you saw it, Christine, because I didn't send it on the Facebook chat. But Mitch, you know that video I sent about? I don't know if you watched it or not. I know you guys have been busy, but there was one I sent about. Let me just look real quick.
I watched the one about the looking
the
glass.
great. No, yeah, Looking Glass, that one. The one called The Secret Technology That Predicted the Great Awakening. Did you see that
Yeah.
one, Mitch?
I didn't see it yet. I'm gonna though.
It's a cool video because I mean, you know, is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter because, well, what did you notice, Drake? Like if you were just the average person watching it, what's coming up within you as you,
Sure, the average person, I think, they
or maybe
would watch
explain it first. I didn't.
Okay, so
give
the
context.
Looking Glass project or whatever, the idea behind it is basically there's a technology that they've been using since the 1920s or something, and this technology could predict when they put in an input what the output would be with a certain percentage of a possibility. So it would say like, oh, 70% certain that this is going to happen, right? And so what they noticed was as they kept getting closer and closer to 2012, all of the inputs had the same output.
Closer and closer, meaning as they looked at
Yeah,
that
as they looked at that
period.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they kept like, oh, what's going to happen in 2012? We don't know because it all converges on this one point, and like it's hard. No matter what input we put in, it just gives us this blank.
It's like, yeah, it's just to add to it. It's like we have choices. And if we choose this, society's going to go this way. And if we choose this, it's going to go this way. And if we choose this, it's going to go this way. But according, and I think what this thing is it probably is real. I think it's a computer, right? And it's basically like you're putting in all this data and it's telling you, it's predicting how things would change and evolve based on certain inputs, right? And so you make choices.
I watched another video of like what people think it is. And you ever watch Stargate?
Yeah.
So they think it's like something like that.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
not that.
It's not.
Yeah, I know, but it's just a computer. Like it's something our government would actually create. Okay, like real, like an actual computer that you put in information and it's really smart and they use chaos theory and and they, it tries to predict information, right? So in any case, it's like if you choose this, you could go down this pathway. If you choose this, you could go down this pathway. But the point Drake was making is, as you got closer to 2012, no matter what choices were made, it all kept coming to eventually the same timeline. Like, even if you went down the path of free energy and everyone has, abundant energy, or I don't know, whatever the fuck it is, and it still comes back to this one point, and it still comes back to this one point. No matter what, it's like we're converged into one point where some quote big event happens, right? And
they thought that it was, for a long time, they thought it was like the end of the world is what's going to happen there. And then what the guy being interviewed says is like, what he realized was it's the end of their world, and meaning the elite's world, because who had access to this technology would be elite, right?
Right, now let's look at that. That's because this is the point I want to get to. Who is the elite?
So what most people think is like, oh, you mean Elon Musk? That's who we're talking about.
It's not. It's every single human being who has consciousness.
Let's unpack that one.
Consciousness is elite. What is consciousness? It's a system. It's like a computer program that allows you to fucking dominate reality. Now you might say, oh, but some poor little starving kid in Africa has consciousness and they're not able to do that. Yeah, because they've been programmed incorrectly. Mm-hmm. But they still have this tool within them as a human being that it's just been programmed in a way where it's like not as effective. So yes, you have elite of the elite. I understand that. But the problem is when you go, oh, the elite's world is crashing down. Well, you don't understand the way you were designed. You were created in a way where you were installed with a system called consciousness. And that consciousness is a system that allows you to fucking lie and deceive yourself and make decisions that aren't best. Like a tree. Can you imagine a tree? It's funny when we say, well, imagine if a tree decided not to give oxygen. What would happen? We'd all die, right? We know this, right? But can you actually imagine a tree deciding not to do that?
No, it's not.
Why not?
Because the tree is going to just do. It doesn't
Exactly.
have to think about it.
Exactly. It doesn't have, like, can you imagine a crow, or I don't know, crows do this, some bird going, I'm not going to migrate north or south or whatever. They're going to do it. Right? But so, like, imagine we were an enlightened society, truly enlightened, not this bullshit, spiritual crap, like actually enlightened, like we actually do what was best. We just automatically like, oh, a child was born. Okay. Do they have enough? Okay. Let's make sure they get everything they possibly need. Make sure the mom gets what they need. Everything is set up in a way where it's effective. And then in that society, someone said, can you imagine if like people just didn't give each other what they needed? They'd be like, what? What are you talking about? Why would that not happen? And so the consciousness is how you program everybody into layers where some have and some don't. And then everyone justifies it through programs, through beliefs, through all this stuff. The whole system of consciousness is like a computer program on top of the natural, organic, physical beings that we are. It's a computer program, and it's connected in ways people can't understand, and it operates within you. And that's the point where, like we were talking in the beginning about all that bullshit people want. Like you were saying, this guy at the network marketing or the network event you're there at was talking about, like they want all these things and stuff. It's like, that's all just your consciousness. It's your consciousness has been programmed ineffectively so that you are not actually here using your perceptual awareness to just be here in reality and to look at what you need to do according to what's best and so forth, and make this. It's like you have consciousness is where you get this freedom of choice, but we don't automatically make the right choice.
Okay. Hang on. because I want you to put this within the like you're hitting really good points, but I want to give the listeners some context as well, because the main point of that video of like the Looking Glass project or Stargate project, whatever, was that, oh, it all just turns out okay. Like we don't have to worry about it because we're the good guys. The good guys make all the
He
right
didn't
moves,
say that,
and
though.
it all works out. He did say at the end, he did say, it's already, there's like a checkmate. It's like you're watching a chess game. There's a checkmate.
Right, but he never
And-
said it was positive.
He said good guys. The good guys win.
Did he? Did he say
He
that?
did. He did.
Okay, and which is obviously fucked.
Right.
I'd have to watch it again. Maybe I just didn't hear that part, because I'm looking at it going, you would have to put that interpretation yourself. But if he said it, he said it. It's fine. But either way,
if you were listening to it, that's what you understood.
whether he said that or not, a person could go, oh, look, based on their starting point.
Yeah.
Go, oh, and if your starting point isn't this, then you would be like, well, that last part he said is bullshit.
Right.
Because up until that point, everything he said actually makes sense if you just don't interject or inject any like positive hope points. Because what he essentially said was, this is at a certain point, there's an event that happens, the game is up, the elites, the way things work for the elite doesn't work anymore. But think of it, if you define elite as you have consciousness. And what if the good guys is physical life on this planet,
Mhm.
not people who have consciousness? People who have consciousness are the bad ones. Let's put it that way. Now imagine, what does it mean the game is up?
Self-interest
No longer-
is up.
Well, that means like your fucking food systems don't work. Your fucking
Mm.
you can't live as a human being on this planet because of all the shit you've created that's based on just feeding your consciousness. You're fucked. So that's how I interpret it.
That's great. I like that interpretation, because I was just talking with Chantel like yesterday about how before TechnoTutor, we were talking about like our lives before TechnoTutor, and how it was just basically being in this routine, like being within like your own mind the whole time, and not being aware, because we were talking about how just looking at people, you can see the things running within them, you know, and how just like, oh, wow, this world is fucked. Like, it's really fucked. But you don't realize that when you're just trying to survive or just going through your routine or whatever. And then it's like, now we're able to see more clearly because of these tools, like just what we were participating in and what the actual world is. And what you're saying is like, basically, essentially, everyone's going to get smacked upside the head out of their routine, out of their system. And they're going to have a choice, essentially, of like, it's kind of like you can prepare to have a child, like you were telling Mitch, right, back in Denver. You can prepare to have a child, or you can just try to wing it and fuck that child up. You're going to fuck it up.
Yeah. When it gets to the point of this event we're talking about, there's no more choice. The choice is right now. The choice is to stand up right now, to start changing yourself now, not then. You how hard is it to change when literally you can't even find food?
Right.
You're fucked. It's too fucking late. And so the whole point of what we're looking at is how to, because what is the event? Okay, here's my interpretation of what the event is. It's not necessarily this food system collapses. It's the realization at a certain point of the vast majority, let's say everybody, whatever, that everything is a fucking lie. It's like, imagine everybody in the Matrix suddenly is like, oh, this isn't real. Right? And they wake up. Well, then what do? Then they don't just suddenly go, oh, cool. Hello, friend. Let us barter. Let us cooperate now. Oh,
Right.
cool.
Then they hit their psychosis point. They're like, wait, this is all a lie, but I can't do anything about it.
Right.
They'll
And
go
so-
into their-
Right. So the preparation that occurs to that up to that point is what determines when the event happens, which is inevitable. It's like this idea, and you look at the comments of the video, and people are like, "Oh yes, the light we'll always win. The victory is upon us. You know, and it's like, let's just wait and sit back. And it's like, no, dude, because everyone's going to go into the super psychosis religion attitude, right? Which is what's happening. So then when you get to that point, it's like, cool, everyone's realized it's all a lie. Sweet. Okay, God, now you can come fix it all.
It's like Jesus take the wheel.
Right. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, what's going, where's God? And then guess what? When everyone realizes there's no God, that's the event. The event is everyone realizing no one takes responsibility. And then they look around at the world and they go, oh shit. We're fucked. We fucked everything up. This is fucked.
And then they finally are like, wait, that self-perfected clubhouse. Maybe I should go to that thing. I keep seeing
No,
my damn
hold
news.
on. No. There's no more internet.
Ah,
You see what I'm saying? Like, if it gets to that point, everybody's fucked.
yeah. I see.
We're fucked. Everybody's fucked. So why are we doing? Because we could just be like, well, let's just wait until that day because there's no point to do anything right now. What's the point? Right now, am I saying civilization is going to collapse? I mean, I can't predict what is going to happen. It's not about that from my perspective. It's about at a certain point, people will not be able to lie to themselves anymore. It'll be so blatant. And so people are going to either go crazy or they're going to be like, okay, now it's time to get real. Let me figure this shit out. So as you were pointing out, Mitch, that's when you have physical clubhouses. That's when you have the children. It's like, it's undeniable. So I think what's going on is that event is not necessarily an event that happens at one time. I mean, there's a consequence, I think, to where at a certain point, things don't work anymore. And that's going to force a bunch of people at a certain time to wait to realize. But I already had this experience. I had this experience in 2007, right? Where I realized my life is fucked. Like nothing's working. I need to change something. And I didn't know what to do. Like it wasn't immediately obvious. I spent several years then just going like searching for shit and going back and going into spirituality and trying to figure it out. And it was only because Bernard had intervened and he was like, here's the reality that you need to face. And then guess what? Did my life suddenly get better? No, it was still fucking insane from 2008 until Max was born. And that doesn't mean I wasn't making progress within myself the whole time, but I wasn't even in any way at any real point of stability. I would say the major point of stability that started to emerge for myself was when I said, I'm done searching. The search is over. I have everything I need. I have TechnoTutor. I have the principles. I have Destiny, DIP, all of that together. I have everything I need. That's when we decided to have a kid. It was like, well, now it's time for us to walk the talk. Like it's over. What is there to fucking, what are we waiting for? Like, it's time to now start creating what would be best and to support other people and to prove and show. So whether this hypothetical event happens or doesn't happen, it's really irrelevant, because let's say it doesn't happen and everyone doesn't mass wake up. Well, then it's your responsibility to go keep waking people up one-on-one. And if it does happen, then it's your responsibility to prepare for that point now. Because only if there is an effective system. Because if you think about it, if the only system that exists is the one that the quote top of the top elite are fucking around in and not looking at what's best for everybody, then when that game ends, everyone is fucked. So what's the only solution? Start developing the systems now that are actually best for everybody. Like, what happens when people just get so fucking crazy and they can't put their kids in school anymore? What's the alternative? It's like, well, look, here's what you do. You have a family, you educate your kids with TechnoTutor. This is how you do it. We've proven it multiple times over, just as an example. What happens when they realize the churches are fucking bullshit? Go to a self-perfected clubhouse. We're going to talk about real things and really support each other and actually be there for each other and have a real actual discussion of reality and support without all the bullshit stuff. Like, you don't need to kneel 3 times and stand up and then turn this way and say that and all this. Like, no, it's like, just fucking read the blogs, do your TechnoTutor. And then when you have an excuse, talk about it with someone that you can see knows what they're talking about, can support you, and then be self-honest and be willing to change. What else do you need? You don't need the priest to forgive you. You just forgive yourself. Like, it's not that complicated. You know, and I brought that whole point about religion up because I saw somebody, I won't say who right now, but it was actually someone congratulating Mitch. It was either you or Jess congratulating you on the baby. And they were saying, oh, we had a baby recently. And I was like, that person had a baby? I didn't know they had a baby. Right? Someone who had kind of come into the group and went out and like, you don't see them anymore, right? I was like, they had a baby. So I went to look at what are they up to, right? Because I'm like, dude, I didn't like they had a baby like in October. And I was like, oh, weird. So I went to look at their profile to see what are they up to, like you know. And you know what? They just went into fucking Islam. They're not even fucking Arab or anything. I'm like, what the fuck? Like saying all like very technical stuff about the hadith and the this and that, and I'm like, but so it's just like, yep, that's exactly what's going to happen. If you don't stand up, you're just going to get sucked into some religious bullshit. You're going to try to justify it. Right. Right. So it's 10:30. Do you need to go, Mitch?
Yeah, I gotta
Okay.
jump. But,
We've been ending the podcast at a certain time lately. If some of you might have noticed, because we have other things we're doing at this time. So maybe we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So any final words?
Yeah, I'd start today. And if you have started, like I know a lot of you have, like keep fucking going. Like you have so much more than I'm sure than you had, Cam, when you started, and then Drake and all that. It's like there's a real big community now. So tap in. If you aren't chatting with people on a consistent weekly basis from the group, reach out to them, get on a call, talk, support them, they'll support you, and then go to the next level. So it's pretty simple. Just do that.
Join us on the Facebook group and Friday night hangouts every Friday, and we'll see you all there. All right.
Cool. All right.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.